Hey guys, so I'm just going to be giving you a quick video series on some concepts that we are going to be applying to SAP. So for the first part of this video, we're going to be talking about setting up the geometry, the section, and material properties for a beam made out of acrylic. Now, since we're doing acrylic in this example, it doesn't mean that you can't translate these same properties into other examples and other materials. So to start, we're going to click on the paper icon in the top left corner to create a new model. From there, we're going to make sure our units are initialized. So in this example, we're going to be using pound inches, but you can see there's a lot of different units that we can use in SAP. From there, we're going to pick grid only. So essentially, this is going to set up a grid for us on SAP to make it a little bit easier for us to apply our grid points and make the beam. So for the number of grid lines, in this case, we're going to be doing 4 in the X direction, 1 in the Y direction, and 5 in the Z direction. And for grid spacing, the X direction is going to be 4, Y direction is going to be 2, and Z direction is going to be 2.5. So then hit OK. And we'll see that SAP has set up our grid for us in both 2D and 3D view. So in this case, since we're only really working in one plane, we can close out of this 3D view. From there, we are going to change our display to XZ so that we can see the entire grid that we're working on. So as you can see, SAP presents us with a 3x4 grid, and this is where we're going to start creating our beam. So go over to the left bar and click on the icon that says Draw Frame/Cable. From there, we are going to draw our 10-inch beam. So as you remember, in our grid spacing, we set up so there would be 5 different grid lines, each with a 2.5 spacing in between them. So that will give us our 10-inch long beam. So select all 5 grid points, and then hit Escape, and we have our 10-inch beam. From there, we are going to be placing a fixed end on the bottom to represent the acrylic piece being attached to a table or some other fixed end. And we're going to keep the free end on the top. So we're going to highlight that bottom grid point. Please make sure to only select this grid point. You can see that when it's selected on SAP, a little yellow X will come up. If for any reason you selected multiple, just hit the Escape button and then do it again. From there, we're going to go to Assign on the top bar, click Joint, and then click Restraints. And as you can see, SAP has all 6 different degrees of freedom popping up. So for a fixed end, we're going to turn off the translation in all 3 degrees of freedom and the rotation in the other 3 degrees of freedom. So just click Fixed, click Apply, and then hit OK. So you'll see that SAP represents a fixed end with a small green box. So that's just a double check to make sure that you have that all set. From there, we are going to define our section and material properties of acrylic. So go to the top bar, click Define, click Section Properties, and then Frame Sections. And as you can see, SAP has predetermined section properties, so we are going to add a new property. And then from there, choose Rectangular, since we'll be using a rectangular piece. And what I'd just like to do is adjust the name that SAP gives us, just so it's a little bit easier when we're going back and trying to match up sections to different materials. From here, we are going to measure our acrylic piece. The key thing that we need to think about right now when we are measuring our natural frequency for these examples is that we are going to have to switch the values of depth and width just to make sure that SAP realizes that we're measuring in the correct axis. So in this case, we have measured a depth of 1.5 inches and a width of 0.1, but we're just going to switch those numbers right here. From there, we're going to navigate down to Material in the bottom left corner and click plus so we can add a new material. Go to Add New Material, and then navigate from Material Type down to Other, since acrylic isn't one of the predetermined materials that SAP already has loaded in. So then we'll hit OK. And now this dialog box pops up where we can set all the user-defined functions about acrylic. Just again, I'm going to change this name to acrylic so it's easier for us to find it later on. We are going to switch the weight per unit volume, and in this case, the density of acrylic is about 0.5 pounds per cubic inch, so we'll set that, 0.05, sorry. We'll set that, and then we'll change the modulus of elasticity to 320,000. Click OK, click OK again, and then make sure that when you get back to your rectangular section, you adjust that material down to acrylic, which is what we just created. Then we'll hit OK one more time and exit out of this. So now that we have our section and material property defined, we want to apply it to the beam that we created. So what we're going to do is just highlight this entire section, hit assign, frame, and then frame sections. And as we see, our dynamics section is now popping up on the frame sections category box. So we'll click it and then hit apply and then exit out. So one thing that SAP does is it'll just label each one of the sections that we made with the corresponding section property. This is really useful when you are creating maybe a beam or a structure that has a lot of different materials composed inside of it. So it'll just give you a quick little label to see which pieces reach which.